Alright guys, so in this video we're taking a look at a new RC transmitter here, and this is from a new company called SIYI, and this is the FT24. So these guys are trying to get into the FPV market, and they have made other types of radios. I've looked at the website and they have other types of higher end radios, but this is sort of like their budget offering, and it's coming in at $99. I believe you have a choice of either the mini receiver or the this is the larger receiver here. And well, I can tell you guys, if you're looking for an OpenTX radio, this is not running OpenTX, and this is probably the biggest downside for, I think a lot of people are kind of more familiar with OpenTX and kind of, expect OpenTX in a lot of new radios. However, I try not to become dependent on any particular one system, and just because you never know, OpenTX and all those radios and Free Sky, whatever, might be gone in a couple of months, and you may have to learn a new radio anyway. So I tend to just not try and depend myself on the features that are inside the radio. Obviously you want to know how to do basic things like binding and channel remapping, that kind of thing. But I generally don't even use a lot of the OpenTX features that most people use, like things like telemetry. I try and avoid that. That being said, I don't have a manual for this yet. This is a pre-release product. I don't know exactly when this is going to be released at the time of the recording of this video. I don't have any data on that, and I don't have a manual, so I did have to kind of try and figure out how things worked. I'm going to show you a little bit of how things kind of work, and it isn't going to be a full-featured review or overview of everything that's going to be covered on this particular transmitter. However, if you are interested in a larger overview, more coverage on this particular model, do let me know down in the comments below, and if there's enough interest, I will go over the manual when it comes out. So maybe cover a lot more of the features, and if there's specific features that you might be interested in covering topic-wise, do let me know down in the comments below. So what's the big thing about this radio? The big thing about this radio is it's 2.4 gigahertz, and it's supposedly running a LoRa-based firmware and LoRa-based chipset. So LoRa is I think it's called like long range something, whatever, I forget. It's an open source project, and they use a chipset from this company, which I don't even remember the name. I'll put it up here. But I do know that Immersion RC Ghost and PBS Crossfire uses those chips from those companies. I don't know if this radio is using those same chips or not. I did try and get that information from them, but they were not willing to disclose that. So I don't know what that means. But because this is a LoRa-based system, they're claiming up to a 15-kilometer range on 2.4 gigahertz. Basically, line of sight. And so basically, if you're flying kind of higher up off the ground and line of sight, you have clear line of sight to the receiver, the radio has clear line of sight to the receiver, then they're claiming up to 15 kilometers. Now, I'm not going to be doing any kind of range test like that. That's completely illegal here in the United States. Might be fine in your country, but it isn't here. So what I did is, at the end of the video, I did a range test where I have a GPS hooked up to a flight controller and their mini receiver, and I have some OSD data on here. You'll see that at the end of the video. It has the RSSI and the distance that I am away from the transmitter, and I'm just walking on the ground. So you'll see that test at the end if you want to see what the range is like on this system on the ground. So now they are claiming 15 kilometers line of sight over the air, or clear line of sight in the air. If you are interested in a test like that, you're going to have to go to some other channel. Now, the other thing that they did want to mention, or make sure that I mention, was that their receivers are firmware updatable over the air. So this is the over the air feature right here that they're promoting. And basically, you plug in the transmitter into your computer. There's some software you have to download that comes from their site. And once you install that, I think you may have to install a USB driver. I didn't have to, but the USB driver is available in case your computer needs it. So micro USB, plug it into your computer, and then depending upon if the receiver is bound or not, in my case it was already bound, it'll show up in the program that does the firmware updating, and then you just select the file to update the firmware. So you can either update the firmware on the radio, or if it detects the receiver, then you just select the file for the receiver, and of course that's a different file, and then it'll update it over the air, which is kind of nice. So now the reason I had to update my receiver with the over-the-air firmware is my receiver, this mini one, didn't have RSSI built in, and so I asked them to update the receiver to output RSSI over an Aux channel, and I'll show you how to set that up a little bit later in the video. So it'll output RSSI over an Aux channel, which is how I did the range test, and you can see that on the OSD. All right, so just a quick look at the radio itself. It's a fairly large radio. These are not Hall sensor gimbals. These are just standard gimbals. They're okay. You know, they feel pretty decent, but they're it's a big radio, so the throws are pretty big. I don't know how they compare to, say, a Taranis X90. I'd say it's fairly comparable. The build quality is, it's okay. It's not creaky. It doesn't feel super cheap, but it doesn't feel premium either. Button clicks are nice and solid. They all work and function correctly. Same with the trims. All of these switches here are, I believe these are all 3-position switches here. This one as well. You have a momentary switch over here, and then you have 2 dials at the top with centering mechanisms, so we'll center. No sliders on this. And at the top here you have your antenna. All of the switches are labeled, and you can use that for the setting up the channels inside the interface. There is a JR module bay here in the back, and it will take standard JR modules like Crossfire, R9, etc. However, the current firmware that's on here doesn't support those modules, so I was not able to test any of that. Maybe the future versions of the firmware will support it. I don't know. I asked them about that. I did not get a clear answer. So you basically have a module bay back here, and I think it'll work over PPM. Of course, I didn't test that because couldn't get a straight answer from them as to how to set it up. So the module bay is here and maybe working in the future, but as of now, it doesn't work. Here on the bottom, you have a door for the battery bay, and I just have a 2S LiPo here connected to the balance plug here. It'll take 2S LiPos, or you can put in 2 18650 lithium ion cells here, one on the right and left, and that'll power up the radio. Okay, so on the bottom here, again, you have the micro USB port for updating your firmware. I could also not figure out how to get this to work with simulators, although I'm pretty sure it should work with simulators because it does show up as a USB device, but I could not get it to work with any of the simulators I had. And then there's a micro SD card slot down here as well. I think it's probably for saving models and settings and that kind of thing. However, without the manual, I was not able to figure out how to use this either. All right, so go ahead and power it up. Okay, so it's a fairly intuitive interface, pretty basic. So you have plus and minus here and enter. You have menu, page, and escape. That's our back button here, and your interface here on the screen. You can toggle between these different, like, model selection, for example, and then over here, this is your channel monitor. So that's this right here, and then this last one here is going to be your endpoints, so you can see how the different channels operate. Then over here you have receiver information. So let me go ahead and turn on this receiver. And you can see the RSSI pops up right away. You can go in here and you can get additional telemetry information here besides RSSI, receiver voltage, etc. But right now I don't have the telemetry set up on this particular receiver. I don't think the mini receivers necessarily support that, or isn't wired up for that. The larger receiver here has all this extra stuff here for the telemetry and power. Of course, this is pretty big and something that even though it is a diversity receiver, this is not something that I would use on even a 5-inch. This is probably more for like a big airplane. Okay, so let me quickly show you how to bind a receiver. I'm going to demonstrate the mini version here. This does not have a bind button, so there's a kind of a unique way to get this into bind mode. And let me show you that first. So first let me go and select another model here. Looks like model 2. Because model 1 is bound to that other receiver. And then you want to confirm. Okay, so now we're on model 2. Okay, so then to bind from the radio, you want to go to menu. You want to go to System, General Settings, and then Link. So we'll press that once we get the receiver into bind mode. So to get the receiver into bind mode, first you power up the receiver for 5 seconds. And you can see that we have a flashing red light, so we have no link. And then you have to basically power it and unpower it for like 1 second 3 times, and then you'll get a fast flashing red light. So unplug. Okay, there we go. So we have a fast flashing red light. Go back to our radio here. And just now we're already on the link, so hit start. And then we should have a green and red flashing light while it's trying to bind, and then we should have a solid green light now. And we should have a bind. And if we back out here to the main page, see now we have a RSSI value coming from the receiver, and it's 100. Okay, so now to set up the RSSI on a channel, you go back into settings here, go into model, and we go into channel mapping. So we want to go down to channel mapping, and then here you can see we have aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder on channels 1 through 4. And as well as you can set these to like switchers and stuff like that, but obviously you don't want to do that. You don't want to mess with these. I didn't mess with those, but let's just go, if you just go down, see that it only shows the first 6 channels, and then it goes back up. So what you want to do to get to the next set of channels is hit page. That's what these 3 dots over here are for. So now we're on the second page. So let's just put it on channel 12. Hit enter. And then we want to select RSSI, but it's not on the first page here. So hit the second page. And here we go. It's the very last setting. So obviously they put this in the last firmware. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. So then now RSSI should be on channel 12. So let's exit out of here and then look at the channel monitor. And we can see here, like aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder. And I haven't set up any of those channels on switches yet, but RSSI should be on channel 12. You can see there, that's at 100% there. So let me just unplug this. Let's see if that changes. There it goes. So it just dropped down to 0. And if we back out, you can see we have no RSSI because the receiver is disconnected. And basically to set up the aux channels and stuff with that, just same procedure. Go to menu, model, channel mapping. And let's say you want to put something here, channel 5. And let's make that, whoops. Let's make that aux 1. You can just label it whatever you want, really. So hit that. And then this next one here is a switch. So we could change that to, let's say, this one here, D. So now that's on D. And let's go back out and look at the channel monitor. So then now channel 5 right here, let's see, is live. It looks like channel 8's also live. I think that's also on that same switch. So let me just double check that. Just in the back menu, channel mapping, and it's on channel. Yeah, so channel 8, which doesn't have a label. And so these are just labels. Or actually, it's actually assigned to SD. So that's how you would assign switches to a particular channel. Pretty similar to how OpenTX works. I mean, I figured this all out just kind of like playing around with it without actually reading a manual. So for basic stuff, how to set up an ARM switch, you know, setting up RSSI, those are the kind of things I would do in OpenTX. I was able to figure that out on this radio without too much issue. So again, that's about as long as I'm going to really cover on this one. I mean, in terms of the size comparison, let me just show you really quick. It's much larger than my T12 Pro that I flew for a while. This is, I probably would say, fairly similar in size to a X9D, but it's substantially lighter. I would say my estimation is probably 100 grams lighter. It doesn't feel that hefty, but it doesn't really feel super cheap either. It just doesn't feel like a premium quality radio. Again, it's like a budget radio. So, you know, if you're kind of like on the fence and you're like, oh, do I really want this or not? You keep in mind that something like the Radio Master TX16 or TX16S, I think is what's called, is a similar size. I think it's a little bit bigger than this, but it runs OpenTX, has a nice interface and everything. But that one only has the multi-protocol module internally, and it runs about the same price. And you can run a wide variety of receivers with that, but you probably aren't going to get the same amount of range on 2.4 gigahertz compared to this one here. Again, take that with a grain of salt. I didn't test the maximum range of this over the air, like with clear line of sight. So may or may not be worth it for you. So that's why I'm not going to really cover this radio in extraordinary detail. But if there's a lot of people that really like this radio and want it fully covered, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and show you the range test here with this little crazy setup here. Show you how far I got on the ground. And that'll do it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Okay, so I got the radio transmitter here on the dash of my car, and I rigged up this little GPS and flight controller to the PowerPlay DVR, and it has the satellites and will show me the home arrow and home distance, as well as the RSSI. And I'm just going to walk off in this direction over here. Should be fairly line of sight with some trees in the way. I'm not going to go below line of sight. And we'll see how far I can go. We can track the RSSI. And I'm going to go ahead and arm it right now. So we're armed. And let's see how the RSSI works. Alright, so I'm going to show you the DVR recording. I'm going to just show you where I'm walking towards. So 11 satellites, 99% RSSI. Shows my distance, I think it's in meters, 19 meters, 20 meters. And you can see there's my car over there, and it's going to head off in the opposite direction over this way. Now, the antennas are in front of me, so my body's going to be blocking the antennas a little bit. So I don't think it's going to matter so much when we're this close, but maybe a little bit later as we get further away. 52 meters, still 99% RSSI. I have the antennas off to my side now, so direct line of sight behind me. No effect on the RSSI, it's not changing at all. Yeah, 76 meters, 77. At least the home arrow seems to be working okay. I'm not sure if the home arrows are actually working, but the distance seems to be accurate. As I am definitely going further away and the numbers are increasing. Let's just keep on going. Alright, so we're dropping a little bit, and I saw 95 here. My body was in the way a little bit. So obviously if you're flying and you're above the ground, above the, I guess it's called the Fresnel zone, or you're going to have better results, because the ground does cause interference. So this is not an ideal test, but to give you an idea of, I know a lot of you guys fly close to the ground typically. This will give you an idea how well this receiver does, at least in a situation like this. Yeah, pretty impressive. Down, still above 90%, not 90. I see 90, 90, 93, 88, 87. I'm going to raise up the antennas a little bit higher above the ground, and the numbers immediately bounce right back up, so like 95, 90, 99. So it's bouncing around 90% now, 99 to like 80 something. But if I get closer to the ground, the numbers are going to drop. Yeah, 90, 95, 91. 210 meters away. Still well into the, now we're dropping below 80. So I'm not 100% sure what the scale of this RSSI meter is like. So I know that there's a RSSI warning built in around 30%, but no fail safes. I haven't seen any fail safes. 250, 260 meters away. Now we're dropping into the 60s. Again, we're just low to the ground. Not bad. Oh, now I saw 50 there. 67, 80. It is jumping around quite a bit now. So, cars somewhere way the hell over there. Behind me, a lot of trees in the way. I am about level to the ground, same level, so I'm gonna head off this way. So I think if I keep going into my left here, that building is going to get in the way and block the signal, but I'm going to try and stay on this side of the path. Yep, now I'm dropping in the 40s. '50s. Still haven't seen a failsafe yet. Reception is pretty good. I think definitely better than a free sky receiver for sure. No failsafe. 50, 40. Yeah, I'm probably getting close to the end of the range here, at least low to the ground. I'm gonna just keep going until it dies. 360 plus meters away. Now we're in the 30s. 40 to 30. Now it's jumped back up to 55. It's jumping around a lot. Ah, I just saw 25. So it's getting towards the end here with no failsafe still. Pretty remarkable. Oh, I'm getting RSSI low. Just got an RSSI low warning and then popped up again. So it means it went below 30. It's built into beta flight, I think, for the OSD warning. 40, 37, 35, 420, 430 meters away. Let's see if I put my body in between here. Now we get an RSSI low 5. So if you get a body in the way, it's going to drop a lot. But oh, getting a bunch of RSSI low warnings. I think it's because those buildings turned around here. Those buildings over there are kind of in the way. But you can see the path ended here, so I'm going in this direction. RSSI still low. No failsafe yet. 15, 35. Yeah, so I'm going to end it here. I would not fly. If I was flying, I would have turned around a long time ago. So I'm going to head on back. So that's about well over 400 to 450 meters. That ought to give you guys a good idea of what the range is like, at least low to the ground for this particular receiver on this firmware. Perhaps they'll improve things in the future, so we'll see.